Good evening. Welcome to Scotland at 7 on Friday, the 29th of January. I'm Gordon Ross, and here's tonight's headlines. But first, before we tackle the headlines, let's go to the coronavirus update first of all. As of 2 o'clock today, a total of 1,557,804 people in Scotland have been tested through NHS Scotland labs and regional government testing centres since the start of the pandemic. Of these, 1,380,116 were confirmed negative. 177,688 have tested positive. There are 1,155 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. Now, this, of course, is an underestimate of the number of cases because not everyone with the virus displays symptoms and not all those with symptoms will be tested. There were 70 new reported deaths of people who have tested positive. The number of patients in Scotland who've died from complications caused by the coronavirus COVID-19 infection now stands at 6,040. This number only includes those who have died having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. Of the people who have tested positive, 1,958 were in hospital last night, 144 of whom were in intensive care. 515,855 people have now received their first dose of the vaccine for COVID-19, and 7,095 people have received their second dose. Now, the UK daily figures were unavailable, unfortunately, before tonight's programme. And now to tonight's main news stories. The Western Isles is about to go into lockdown due to an increase in the prevalence of coronavirus COVID-19 and an increase in infection rates. Now, Neil and Sar will move into level 4 lockdown from midnight on Saturday. New cases following the previous rise, including a community outbreak on Barra, have placed significant strain on hospital capacity in the Western Isles Health Board area. And the hospital in Stornoway is now reaching full capacity with available staffing resources. Some non-urgent procedures will be rescheduled, but the hospital will maintain a full emergency service. Clinical advice is that the move to lockdown is necessary to avoid the NHS becoming overwhelmed. Nobody who lives in an area under lockdown should leave or remain outside their home except for an essential purpose like caring responsibilities, outdoor exercise or work which cannot be done from home. Now, in other COVID news today, the vaccine programme moves to its next stage. People aged 70 and over will get the coronavirus COVID-19 vaccines in a range of settings, from community centres to mass vaccination centres, from Monday the 1st of February, as the vaccination programme moves into the next stage. Those aged 70 to 79 and the clinically extremely vulnerable, including over 16s on the shielding list, start receiving their invitations on Monday the 25th of January, and subject to supplies, will have received their first dose by mid-February. The mass vaccination centres, including Edinburgh International Conference Centre and Aberdeen's P&J Live at the Tika, will be in operation from February the 1st for members of the public with appointments. NHS staff at these centres will have been vaccinating each other this week as part of their induction. The EICC will have capacity to vaccinate more than 21,000 people per week at 45 stations. The centre in Aberdeen will start with 20 booths, vaccinating around 6,000 people weekly. The Louisa Jordan Mass Vaccination Centre in Glasgow has been operating since the 8th of December, carrying out, let me just find this, my page has just slipped slightly here, carrying out 1,000 to 5,000 vaccinations daily. The facility has the capacity to move to 10,000 per day. The scale of operations at mass vaccination centres means letters will also start going out next week in Lothian, Grampian and Greater Glasgow and Clyde to those aged between 65 and 69, the next group on the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation priority list. Other smaller vaccination centres located at community facilities such as village halls and sports centres are also opening as the rollout continues across the country. The programme for first doses for care home residents, frontline health and care social workers and those aged 80 and over will be complete by the 5th of February. Now, in another health service news story today, over £16 billion is to be invested in the Scottish Health Service. Record funding to support NHS Scotland throughout the most challenging period in its history has been delivered in the 2021-2022 Scottish Budget. The health portfolio will receive more than £16 billion, an increase of 5.3% on 2020-21 spending, with a further £869 million for tackling coronavirus COVID-19. Funding for frontline NHS boards has increased to £11.6 billion, building on a record level of spending and ensuring that frontline services can respond to the unprecedented challenges presented by the pandemic. The 2021-22 Scottish Budget also includes £550 million capital funding for NHS Scotland, including funding for the construction of a new elective care centres and the Baird Family Hospital and Anchor Centre in Aberdeen. There's also £883 million to invest in social care and integration, including funding for local authorities to deliver the living wage, implementation of the Carers Act, and uprating of free personal care. There's also £139 million investment in mental health services, supporting an overall mental health spending of more than £1.1 billion. A further £145.3 million for alcohol and drug services, including a £50 million for our national mission to reduce drugs deaths. And now over to more news on vaccination, and the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine has now been given full approval by the EU's regulators. The European Union Medicines Agency has authorised the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine for use in all adult age groups after days of doubt. A month after it received approval in the UK, the EU's regulator declared the vaccine safe for general use across the 27 member states. The shot is the third COVID-19 vaccine given a green light by the EMA after the ones made by Pfizer and Moderna. Both were authorised for all adults. There had been concerns that a lack of data about the effects of the vaccine on older people could put authorisation of those aged over 65 in doubt. Earlier this week, a committee at Germany's public health body, the Robert Koch Institute, said there was insufficient data to judge, and as a result, it could only recommend using the vaccine on people aged 18 to 64. But in an interview with La Repubblica on Tuesday, AstraZeneca's CEO, Pascal Soriot, said that his company's latest studies showed very strong antibody production against the virus in the elderly, similar to what we see in younger people. The British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, had also said that confidence in the vaccine was safe and had produced an immune response in all age groups. The EMA's decision will now allow the deployment of 400 million doses ordered by the EU for its population once they are delivered. The company has warned the European Commission that it will only be able to deliver 25% of the 100 million expected doses in the first quarter of this year due to a low yield at its Belgian production plant, causing huge controversy. AstraZeneca had agreed to the publication of its advance purchase agreement with the European Union. The contract, published today, says that AstraZeneca must use its best reasonable efforts to manufacture the EU doses, but the parties disagree on what this means. AstraZeneca's contention is that this is more of a subjective assessment, but a Commission official said on Friday it was an objective legal standard. The official pointed to a sentence in the contract by which AstraZeneca says it is not under any obligation to others that would impede complete fulfilment of the agreement's requirements. The Commission also contends that it does have the right to doses which are made in Britain and refers to a section at the end of the contract listing 2 British production sites. AstraZeneca shall use its best reasonable efforts to manufacture the vaccine at manufacturing sites located within the EU, which for the purpose of this section 5.4 shall include the United Kingdom. The contract says that in a section on manufacturing sites. Now, British business leaders have also today warned of Brexit causing substantial difficulties at UK ports. The leaders of Britain's 5 largest business groups have warned the government that firms face substantial difficulties at UK ports since Brexit, with the prospect of a significant loss of business if the situation is allowed to continue. Following a roundtable meeting on Thursday evening with the Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove, a letter was issued by the CBI, the British Chambers of Commerce, the Manufacturers Group, Make UK, the Federation of Small Businesses and the Institute of Directors. The letter said the government needed to act quickly to overcome the sizable obstacles faced by exporters. With hold-ups at UK ports worsening and many lorries making return journeys empty following difficulties obtaining customs certificates, the business groups said that ministers needed to act quickly. The letter was published after Gove appeared to play down the significance of the difficulties faced by businesses struggling to overcome customs barriers, and what they described as a lack of coherent advice from government departments about the EU trading rules following Brexit. They warned that grace periods agreed with the EU would expire over the next 2 months at the time when cross-border traffic, which is usually low in January, was due to grow. And unless measures were put in place to smooth customs procedures, the situation would deteriorate. Now, there is also mounting pressure on the UK government to scrap the benefit cap. The SNP has said the Tory government must urgently scrap the benefit cap to avoid more families and children being pushed into poverty, after statistics revealed that the number of households hit by the cruel tax has shot up. New figures revealed that the number of Scottish households affected by the benefit cap has nearly doubled throughout the pandemic, from around 3,300 in January to 6,400 in August. The data shows that this time the average amount lost due to the benefit cap was around £50 a week, or £2,600 per year. A large majority, 97% of these households contained children, while just over 66% were lone parent families. There were no couples without children who were affected by the benefit cap. And on to other news now. The second weekend of pro-Navalny protests is expected in Russia. Russia is braced for a second weekend of unrest as the Kremlin cracks down on protests in support of the jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny in an effort to prevent them from growing into a Belarus-style uprising. In the new letter, Navalny appears to nod to the Stop the Cockroach demonstrations against the Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko, and thanked his supporters, saying they can't put everyone in jail. Supporters were called to a rally on Sunday near the headquarters of the FSB, the intelligence agency accused of poisoning Navalny last August. Alexei is facing a serious prison sentence for challenging Putin, investigating his own poisoning and telling all of Russia about the president's palace, an invitation read. At stake is whether opposition to Vladimir Putin can maintain its momentum and threaten to paralyse parts of Moscow and other cities every weekend. This would create a sizable headache for the Kremlin, which appears poised as soon as Tuesday to put Navalny in prison for years to come. And now to America. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tells Ted Cruz, "You almost had me murdered." The Democratic representative, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has rejected a message of support from Ted Cruz, adding that Texas Senator almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago. Yesterday, Cruz had endorsed Ocasio-Cortez's call on Twitter for a congressional hearing about the decision by online trading platform Robinhood to restrict trading in GameStop shares. But while welcoming the chance to work across party lines on the issue, Ocasio-Cortez had harsh words for Cruz. "I'm happy to work with the Republicans on this issue where there's a common ground, but you almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago, so you can sit this one out," Ocasio-Cortez tweeted. "Happy to work with almost any other GOP that is not trying to get me killed. In the meantime, if you want help, you can resign." While you conveniently talk about moving on, a second Capitol police officer lost life yesterday in the still raging aftermath of the attacks you had a role in, she said. "This isn't a joke. We need accountability, and that includes a new senator from Texas." 7 Democratic senators have filed formal complaint, urging the Senate Ethics Committee to investigate Cruz, along with the Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, because of their efforts to block the certification of Joe Biden's election. Hawley and Cruz were prominent amongst the 147 Republican representatives and senators to vote against certifying the election results, even after the Capitol attack. Now to Indonesia, and the Aceh province has publicly caned 2 gay men. Authorities in the Indonesia's Aceh province publicly caned 6 people accused of breaching Islamic law, including 2 men who received 77 lashes for having a same-sex relationship, in a punishment that Human Rights Watch called public torture. Aceh is the only province in the majority Muslim Indonesia to follow Islamic law, and this was the 3rd such caning since Aceh outlawed homosexuality in 2014. The province on the northern tip of the Sumatran island also imposes caning on crimes such as theft, gambling and adultery. A hooded religious police officer carried out yesterday's floggings, watched by a crowd wearing face masks. One of the men grimaced in pain as he received the punishment, which caused his mother to faint. 2 other people received 40 lashes for alcohol consumption and another 2 17 lashes for adultery. Andreas Harsono, the Indonesian researcher for Human Rights Watch, condemned the canings and the homophobic attitudes displayed by some in Aceh, a deeply conservative society where lesbian, gay, bisexual or transgender people are ostracised and targeted by the authorities. Opinions among the Acehnese are still a world away for any tolerance for LGBT communities. Devi Arina, a 53-year-old teacher, said that she backed caning for homosexual acts. But in addition, she felt that people should be given counselling so that they should realise their actions are not suitable for us as believers. Now, enhanced support is being offered for people in emotional distress. More support will be available to people experiencing emotional distress following the expansion of the Distress Brief Intervention Programme to further local areas. If someone presents as in distress to an emergency services or primary care setting, then this programme can offer them a call from a trained operator within 24 hours. They will then be provided with up to 2 weeks of one-to-one support to help address the issues which might be contributing to their distress, including, for example, money worries and relationship problems. NHS Ayrshire and Arran are the latest health board to launch the DBI programme, following a rollout of a local service in Inverclyde earlier this month. And since it began in 2017, the programme has been made available to 10 health and social care partnership areas. And that is about it for the news this Friday evening on Scotland at 7. But I'd just like to remind you that Broadcasting Scotland is still holding a major crowdfunder. So if you value Scotland at 7 and other programmes made by the channel and you would like to support us, you can do so by following the instructions on your screen now. If a further £300 in donations will take us to over £20,000 in the current totaliser. So please give what you can, and if you can't give us any money at all, then you can always offer your help as a volunteer. Anyway, that is about it from Scotland at 7 this week. I'll be back again on Monday, but in the meantime, from all of us here on Scotland at 7, very good night to you.
The Catalans, the Basques, the Galicians in the Basque.
An independent future for Scotland.
How quickly do you think a referendum can be arranged?
Best practice demands that it should be 6 months.
Just looking at the overall share numbers for Scotland at the moment, the SNP 46.4%.